Guys, welcome back to the Be Different podcast. We are here, and it is getting so cold outside right now. I got to tell you, we shoot this early, as I know I try to say every single time, but I'm walking out my place this morning. It's about 5 degrees out there. I mean, Andy, and we got Andy joining us early. Andy, it is rough out there right now.
Brr.
Gosh.
The weather outside is frightful.
Wow. I thought you were going to open that up possibly into a song. Were you going to take that into a song?
Let it snow, let it snow, let it snow.
Nick, how about that voice from Andy Mack? I mean, Andy needs to have his own Christmas soundtrack. I mean, moving into this December 25th, Christmas Day, I'd love to have some Andy Mack vocals behind.
Andy Mack's Christmas, bah humbug. I buy nobody gifts. Nobody gets any gifts.
No, it's your voice that keeps on giving.
Yeah.
It's all good.
Well, we're back talking hoops. We're going to get to Xavier here in a second. Later on, we have some UC greats, Corey Blunt, Leonard Stokes, possibly Kevin Johnson in the building, so we'll stay tuned for that after we get through all of the Xavier stuff. But as always, we want our Nick Given update. Nick, can you get us updated on some scores, highlights? Just very quickly, we'd appreciate it.
Yes, some scores for over the weekend. Number 1, Duke goes down to Boston College, 89-84. Screw Grayson Allen. Michigan State beats Southern Utah. We'll talk about the Florida and the Xavier games in a little bit. Number 2, Kansas goes down to Arizona State, which makes you guys look a little better.
It looks great, doesn't it?
It's got to look good for you guys. You got to be happy with Arizona State just rolling. Please be number 1 in the country. Villanova beats LaSalle. Gonzaga wins again, 97-70 over Washington. Purdue, no one cares about Purdue, but they won as well. And then as far as yesterday, there really weren't any games. I mean, there's 2 games. We'll talk about the UC game here in a little bit. And Seton Hall beats St. Peter's 84-61.
All right. Yeah, not a lot of games.
Lonzo Ball threw one down pretty hard last night. Did you see that?
I did see that. Lonzo played pretty well at the Garden, and the Lakers lost that game to the Knicks in overtime. Porzingis had a nice game, and LeVar, he was front row. He was sidelined. He was wearing a Big Baller brand black T-shirt. He had some dad jeans on. He was looking good. He's got his other 2 sons now playing in Lithuania. But that was an entertaining game last night.
They're making a solid $500 a month, I heard.
Really? Wow. Tax-free, though.
So they could
tax-free money, that's coming right in.
They could buy 1 pair of their own shoes. That would be...
Maybe not even with tax, Greg, but that's a fantastic point.
Just saying they're really making the big bucks.
You have to go on a payment plan in order to get the Big Baller brand shoes. You got to get a payment plan over 6 months, and you're going to be able to...
cards?
Yeah.
Is that how it works?
I believe so.
Well, if you play in Europe, you get a free car and a free place to live. So they get like a Willys Overland Jeep left over from World War II if they're playing in Lithuania. Like they go to the junkyard, pick that one out, and they get to live in like a hovel made out of sod without any running water in Lithuania. So that's a great deal for those kids.
Andy, that's a great point. You painted a really nice picture there.
I hope they survive, those guys.
And LiAngelo's got all those sunglasses and all that coach gear from China, so
they're all good there.
And the stuff he stole was all knockoffs. In China, you go into a shop and it says like some big brand on it, and you know that it's phony.
Yes.
What are those kids thinking of?
I don't know, but I'm looking forward to watching them play.
I
The
hope
people in Lithuania are so excited that the balls are coming in.
Are they really?
They are, yeah. I was watching some interviews yesterday. I mean, the Lithuanian people.
Did you talk to your Lithuanian friends?
Yeah,
Did you call your contacts in Lithuania?
You guys know I'm a travel guy. I got friends in all different countries, Lithuania and the like.
They can make a lot of money over there. They only have 1,500 seats in the gym. That's
Wow.
it. 1,500 seats in the gym.
Well, how expensive is each ticket, Andy?
$5.
You know,
$5.
$100 a ticket. They might be doing okay.
It could work out. I don't know.
We're going to remove ourselves from LaMelo Ball, who will not be playing college basketball. We're going to move on to some guys that are playing college basketball. Andy, it's exam week, which was always a very, very important week for me. Yes, I did play basketball in college, but yes, I also did go to school. Did I have a 4.0 GPA? Yes, I did. Okay, so I was always locked in. Exam week, it was a great time for me to just, be in the library, read some books, and get caught up on everything that I needed to for that week, Andy.
Now, you're a scholarly type, obviously. The only thing you don't have is the horn-rimmed glasses, but otherwise,
I don't have those contacts.
Your whole persona was based on being very, very circumspect about your academic career. But Xavier guys actually do pull all-nighters and write papers.
All-nighters might be a little bit of a stretch, but they might take it when it's dark outside, 5:30, 6 o'clock, then they might be done.
That's true. But overall, what was exam week like for a player? I mean, less of a workout and more of a study time?
Yeah, I mean, during that week, the coaches definitely do give you breaks. You don't have any classes going on, obviously, during that time. So, I mean, some of the players, they'll have study hall 2 times that day. So they'll have 2 hours in the morning and then 2 hours in the evening. And during that time is where you're really expected to get a majority, the bulk of that studying done so you're ready for exams. And on the other side, once exam week is done, you're going to have about 3.5 weeks where you no longer have to go to school. You're just now allowed to focus on practice, focus on games. So it's a great time, especially for freshmen. And I know for me especially, that was when I took a big step. I felt like as a player was my freshman year when I had that Christmas break and I was able to just kind of focus on games and not worry about going to school at all. So once you knock it through exam week, and Xavier has a team in East Tennessee State they should be able to handle at home, then you move on and you get into really the heart of your schedule.
The Xavier record immediately after exams over the years has not been all that great. I think Coach Mack has modified his schedule. Now he does not play a game, obviously, during exam week proper, but the game right after exams is a home game, and it's usually on paper at least, it's a winnable home game. East Tennessee State, they had a good year last year. They made the NCAA. They were 27-8, but 4 of their starters have left, and I know you've seen them. They played NKU twice. They showed a big improvement, though, from game 1 to the game last week.
Well, they lost a lot of players from last year's team. They have a few guys back, but they reload with older players. They're not so Xavier will not play a team with freshmen and sophomores. They're going to be primarily junior and senior led. And they do have 3 talented guys on the perimeter. DeSante Bradford's a nice player. Jalen McLeod, we talked about him earlier, a transfer from Texas Southern, and Devontaeus Payne. Those 3 guards, they all average over 10 points per game, and they do have a big guy in Peter Jerkin. He's 7 feet tall. He's a big body. He's a transfer from Indiana. He played his freshman and sophomore year with the Hoosiers. He's been a little bit inconsistent for this East Tennessee State team, the Buccaneers, but he did have a great game at Kentucky, 17 points, 7 rebounds. So he's a guy that really will need to play well when he's going up against those bigs from Xavier.
We've seen a couple of 7-footers that came in to Xavier games sort of heralded. And there was the guy from Kent State who could not chew gum and walk at the same time. He was a non-factor against X. And also, Colorado had a freshman 7-footer who really was not much of a factor. So, I mean, this guy may be an upgrade, but I'm not too worried.
He's an upgrade, but he's the only guy on that team that even has the size remotely to hang with the bigs at all from Xavier. And they're just playing so well. Between Tyreek and Sean and those guys, I mean, their ability to kind of come in at different times and really attack the bigs from the opposing team, especially at home, has been impressive. I don't see Peter Jerkin from East Tennessee State giving us too many problems.
Xavier is just a little over 2 weeks removed from the start of the Big East season. They have to open up at Marquette on Wednesday, December 27th. We've got the East Tennessee State game Saturday at Cintas. Then the Marshall Thundering Herd, they're in on Tuesday, also at Cintas. And their numbers don't look all that impressive. On paper, that should be a W. A sticky wicket, though, is a week from Friday at Northern Iowa, and people will say, Northern Iowa, it's a directional school. I mean, what are these guys, a bunch of farmers? No, they're in the Missouri Valley, and they're coached by Ben Jacobson, who's been there for 15 years, and they are very, very good. They gave Villanova a great game at the Battle for Atlantis, and those guys from Northern Iowa going to the Bahamas had to be like a seminal moment for these guys. They collected themselves. They won 2 good games and just, they took Villanova to the wire at the Battle for Atlantis.
Well, Northern Iowa is going to be a well-coached team with Ben Jacobson. They've played a good schedule to this point, and that'll be a really good opportunity for Xavier to pick up another road win. They have that road win at Wisconsin. I know Wisconsin has struggled a little bit, but that still looks good on the committee when you have that road win. If you go to Northern Iowa and you win that game as well, that adds just another good mark for Xavier on the road.
Northern Iowa, you talk about your trap games, that really qualifies as a potential trap game. I mean, we've been playing the trap game with Xavier over, we had Colorado as a possible trap game, Kent State as Northern Iowa at Cedar Falls could be a pain in the butt. It's like a trip to the orthodontist without Novocaine, without any of that music playing in your ear, whatever. I mean, I think Xavier will win the game, but Northern Iowa will be very happy to make it super ugly and make the score in the 60s or the high 50s.
And X's resume, Andy, is starting to look pretty quality right now. The 2 top 25 wins, very convincing wins at the Cintas Center against Baylor and UC. We talked about the road win at Wisconsin and that loss to Arizona State, which many of us thought could possibly be a black mark on this team, the way that Xavier kind of got exposed on the defensive end and one-on-one situations. Well, right now they're playing fantastic. Coach Bobby Hurley, by far right now, is Coach of the Year across all of college basketball, and they are ranked in the top 5 nationally.
Yeah, Arizona State is one of the 6 unbeaten teams left as we record this in Division I basketball. They're 9-0, and the Kansas Jayhawks under Bill Self have lost 11 games. They're 224-11 at Fog Allen Fieldhouse in Lawrence, and ASU beat them Sunday, and it wasn't even close. It was 95-85, but Arizona State, they held a double-digit lead almost from late first half all the way through. They dominated.
Well, you got to be impressed. Arizona State's confidence right now is off the charts. And when you watch these guys play on the offensive end, the way they're attacking defenses downhill in transition and one-on-one situations, I mean, it is a team that plays with extreme confidence offensively, and they're going to continue to be a challenge. And they're going to be kind of the favorite now moving in the Pac-12.
Arizona State moved up to number 5 in the country in Associated Press this week. They got 5 first-place votes, number 1 in the country. And they got a sticky wicket, though, to open the Pac-12. They have to play Sean Miller at Arizona in Tucson. Arizona State at Arizona. I think it's New Year's Eve or something.
Yeah, in Arizona, they struggled in their non-conference tournament, but they have plenty of talent to turn this thing around this year. I'm looking at the rest of the teams in the Big East, still looking strong. Villanova has taken that top spot after the Dukies. Andy, your favorite team, Coach K, Grayson Allen, Marvin Bagley, they lost at Boston College.
And deservedly so. I mean, they played no defense. BC made about 15, 16 threes. Boston College hasn't beaten a team with a pulse in a number of years. And Duke walked in, and they were like a willing participant. So I'm sure Coach K will use that loss against BC to whip his team into a frenzy. And they probably won't lose again until mid-February. But that's the way it is. Villanova undefeated. TCU is undefeated. Arizona State is undefeated. Florida State, Miami of Florida, and the 6th undefeated team is a bit of a paper tiger. They're from the Big East. The Georgetown Hoyas are 8-0.
Jeez, they have played a schedule of nobody to this point, though, Andy. Absolutely nobody. And when they move into the Big East Conference, they will likely be at the bottom of the league, right there beside DePaul. I mean, Georgetown doesn't have the talent to keep up with the top half of this Big East.
The Hoyas may come a cropper on Saturday at the Verizon Center in D.C. as they play the Syracuse Orange, my alma mater.
And Syracuse, I watched them play against UConn. They don't have a bad team. They're not great by any means, but they have some athletes. They have some length. They have some guys that can score. I would expect Georgetown to suffer their first loss to the hands of the Syracuse Orange.
I don't know what the line's going to be on that game because I never bet on anything. I'm too cheap, but I would be taking Syracuse. I'd actually give some points. Maybe we're underrating Georgetown. Maybe Patrick Ewing has sprinkled pixie dust over that lineup. He has the 2 big guys. He has Marcus Derrickson and Jesse Govan's numbers are off the charts. The big guy who can shoot from the outside, and he has some decent leftovers from the JT 3 days. But I don't know. I mean, he's going to have to be a magician to get that team to play 500 ball in the Big East.
Yeah, we don't want to completely discredit this Georgetown team. They went out, they've played games, they've won every single one of their games to this point, but we also want to make sure expectations are there where this is still not a team that is expected to compete at that top half of the Big East.
And if we're right, they'll get swatted, and they'll get swatted big time in the Big East. I'm strictly interested in how Xavier does. I mean, they have to open at Marquette against those two water bug guards, Andrew Rousey and Marcus Howard. And then they have that Sam Hauser guy on the wing. And I don't know what they're doing for big guys, but it doesn't seem to matter.
Doesn't seem to matter at all, Andy. Nick, you look like you got something on your mind over there.
Yeah, I'm just curious. I mean, how bad do you think Xavier's going to win this weekend?
Well, I think
I didn't hear a score prediction.
As Brad says, he's watched East Tennessee State, and right off the bat, NKU drilled them over in Northern Kentucky. But then, 3 or 4 weeks later, NKU went to Johnson City, and East Tennessee State returned the favor, beat them by 15-18. So, I mean, they've got some veteran players, and Xavier is coming off exam week. But Chris Mack will have 2 full practices Thursday and Friday to get them ready to go. So I would think that Xavier should be able to handle ETSU.
A nice little 20-point W. Is that what we're talking?
I'd say maybe I'll go 85-72.
Okay.
Yeah, I like that. It's a good score right there.
That's a good score.
That's a good score. Coming off an exam week, East Tennessee State, they have been improving. They're going to come into the Cintas Center and be extremely excited to play. Andy, in addition to Villanova and Xavier, who move up in the rankings, Seton Hall, they're also playing well there at 15 at this moment.
Yeah, their only loss is to Rhode Island. Actually, Rhode Island, probably the favorite in the Atlantic 10. They've given the Big East trouble. They beat Providence, and they also beat Seton Hall, so they're pretty good at. And that guard Matthews has been out with injuries. Their best player is going to be back, I think, this week.
Yeah, when E.C. Matthews gets back, he's a guard from Detroit, a really good player for Rhode Island. I mean, Rhode Island's going to get even better with a guy like that can play in those one-on-one situations. Andy, I do want to revisit briefly that Xavier-Colorado game. Xavier won that game 96-69. Many thought that game was going to be a little bit closer. I mean, Colorado came into that game 7-1. They hadn't played the best schedule, but they do have some talented guys. They got some bigs and some guards that can go. I mean, J.P. McCura in that first half, one of the best halves that I've seen out of J.P.
J.P. dropped 17. He attacked the rim. He also spotted up for threes, and it looked like Colorado, they tilted their defense toward Trayvon Blewett, and obviously Xavier adjusted well to that, and J.P. scored the ball well. I thought Chris Mack highlighted Kaiser Gates after the game. Gates scored 6, had 6 rebounds, but he was the guy who D'd up on their best player, George King, who's a 6'6", 220-pound guy who flexes out to shoot threes. Very good all-court player, and Kaiser made him very inefficient. I think he shot 5 for 15, and Kaiser's going to have some great matchups like that in the Big East. I'm thinking of Desi Rodriguez, Rodney Bullock, and Mikal Bridges of Villanova, who everybody thinks is going to be a first-round, maybe a lottery pick in the NBA. Kaiser Gates, if he can D up against those guys who've always given Xavier trouble, those flex guys who can, bounce out and hit threes. Kaiser's got the foot speed. He can follow them out, and he's also big enough that he can get down and keep them off the board. I think this maturation of Kaiser Gates, not only as a scorer, but also as a defender against a stretch 4 or a pretty mobile 3 is really important.
Well, yeah, and going into the season, I think that was a question mark on the perimeter. Who's going to be able to guard some of those guys who are taller and athletic? A guy like Mikal Bridges, like we've talked about, who's given Xavier some problems in the past, and Kaiser is starting to step up, and he's going to be expected to guard those guys and be a stopper and make life difficult on them throughout the year. But Coach Mack and the staff, they have to have confidence at this point in what Kaiser has been able to show them on the defensive end.
And if Kaiser Gates can match up with Bullock and Bridges and Rodriguez, at least part of the time, that means that Trayvon Blewett doesn't have to do it. which is good.
Which the more that you can save Trayvon Blewett defensively, the better that he's going to continue to be able to play on offense, and that's really been a big piece to his shooting numbers. And one thing, Andy, that's really stood out to me was the improvement of so many guys on this team. I mean, even Trayvon Blewett, with how well he played last year, all of his shooting numbers are up across the board. He's shooting almost 50% from 3, over 50% from 2. Kaiser Gates, we talked about him defensively. He made 40 3-pointers last year. This year he's already at 26. He's shooting the ball at a much higher clip. Tyreek is playing fantastic. He's doubled what he did last year, points per game as well as rebounds per game. And Quentin Gooden, 6.5 assists per game. He's leading the Big East right now. I mean, almost every player from Xavier has stepped up and improved on what they did in the offseason. And that's got to be a credit to the players as well as the coaching staff.
Quentin Gooden is a guy who is not really getting the credit he deserves. And maybe that's good. He's a sophomore. You want him to, not get too complacent with how he's playing. I don't think he's going to. He's a bigger point guard. He's a distributor. He drives the ball. He disrupts defenses. And his numbers right now, and I know it's non-conference, are better than some of the real veteran guards in the Big East. And Xavier's played a very representative schedule. His numbers are better than Carrington, Cartwright, Andrew Rousey, and I might even advance the stats for Brunson of Villanova. I mean, he's been, on paper, has the best assist-turnover ratio and overall assist numbers of any of those point guards in the Big East.
He's matched up with everyone he's played against so far. He looks confident doing it and has a strong understanding of what he's doing offensively to set up guys. If there are any concerns for this team, it could be at the backup point guard position with Paul Scruggs. He hasn't really came into his own yet. Freshman still kind of trying to figure it out. But moving forward, how important is that going to be to get Paul Scruggs kind of going so he can play some quality minutes?
I think he's showing progress. He is a good defender. He's a tough kid. He is, the other night, he went down in a heap taking a charge and landed on Tyreek Jones, who's like a one big muscle, and he bruised a rib, went to the dressing room. His night is done. He came right back, and Mac put him in the ball game. I mean, he's a very tough kid. And look at where Quentin Gooden was last year at this time. He was playing 5, 6, 7 minutes. Nobody knew what he was. I think Scruggs has had a lot more time on the floor. He's adjusting to the substitute role after being a star in high school and in prep school and in AAU, and it looks like he's willing to accept his role, as is Najee Marshall. They're going to fit into the rotation, and I'm not worried about Scruggs. He doesn't have to be a great star with the ball. He just needs to hold serve when Quentin Gooden gets in foul trouble or needs a rest, and basically, D up on his man, on the opposing point guard, and get the ball in the right spots offensively. So his job is somewhat slimmed down, but I think he's going to be a more than adequate second point guard.
Well, at this point, pretty much everything looking good for the Xavier Musketeers. Andy, before we get rolling, we do want to get to some recruiting very quickly. Xavier did pick up a transfer, a very sought-after transfer from Dartmouth University. He's going to have 2 years of eligibility. That's Evan Boudreaux.
Yeah, Boudreaux is from Dartmouth of the Ivy League. He played 2 years at Dartmouth. He's not playing basketball at all this year. He's concentrating on his academics. He's going to graduate from an Ivy League school in 3 years. This guy, Boudreaux, is a bright guy, and also he's a very good basketball player. He was a top 100 recruit coming out of Lake Forest, Illinois, which is a real ritzy area on the North Shore, just north of Chicago. All-time leading scorer at his high school, one of the top recruits from the state of Illinois coming out. He played a high-level AAU, and very bright kid, and he's going to have, this is brilliant, he's going to be a grad transfer with 2 years of eligibility at X. He's 6'8", 220, and one of those sort of tweener guys who can shoot the three but also goes to the board well. I mean, he's sort of like a dark horse, but he picked Xavier over Purdue and Colorado.
And Chris Mack, once again, doing a nice job on the recruiting trail, and he has made a habit of picking up these quality transfers that are looking at other high major programs, and once again, they get another one. That's Evan Boudreaux, averaged over 17 points per game, almost 10 boards, a guy that was almost a double-double guy his first 2 years at Dartmouth.
It's an interesting sort of off-the-board acquisition for Xavier. It does fill a major hole. Everybody was ripping on Xavier for their recruiting class this year. Well, you can add Boudreaux to the equation. He's not going to have to redshirt. He will be immediately eligible next year to play 2 years. And the guy on the East Coast was the point man, Luke Murray. He came up large. He got his Tyreek Jones, and he gets Xavier Evan Boudreaux.
Coach Murray getting it done. Xavier, they're going to have a big week coming up. We talked about it. Saturday will be that game at the Sinai Center against East Tennessee State. Players will be done with exams. And next week, Andy, we will get back together. We'll keep kicking it old school with you. We appreciate your time. We value you. You are a special member. Of course, you know that every time that you come here.
What are you setting me up for something? I mean, all these compliments.
I just enjoy honestly giving you accolades. I enjoy because you deserve it. You deserve it, Andy. And I got to make sure that someone, you know, that I have your back. You got to make sure you know that.
You know, Brad, you think I've been prepared and revved up for this non-conference portion of the schedule? We get into the Big East a week from 2 weeks from Wednesday or something. The Marquette. We're going to be so ready for Marquette, and then the home opener in the league against the DePaul Blue Demons. That it's going to be off the charts.
I'm with you. Non-conference slate is almost over. Xavier has been quality. They're in the top 10. And next week we get to start talking about the Big East Conference. Andy, we appreciate it.
Thank you, Andy.
See you, Andy.